Imagine a world where one woman's audacity could topple an empire. Picture this: in the heart of ancient Rome, under the flickering glow of golden lamps, the empress herself, Valeria Messalina, orchestrates a secret wedding to another man, while still married to the emperor. Not in some hidden chamber, but in a lavish ceremony with hundreds of guests, defying every law of Rome. This wasn't just scandal, it was a brazen act of rebellion that shook the foundations of the most powerful civilization on earth. Welcome to the life of Messalina, a woman who turned absolute power into a playground of unchecked desire, political genius, and catastrophic ambition. If you think you've heard every scandal history has to offer, buckle up, this story will redefine what you believe is possible. Let's set the stage: Rome, 38 CE, the Palatine Hill. The air hums with the scent of costly incense and the distant clamor of a city housing millions. Rome is no ordinary place. It's the nerve center of an empire stretching from Britain to Egypt, where whispers carry more weight than swords. Here, rumors aren't gossip, they're weapons, capable of toppling dynasties or crowning nobodies. And in this world of marble halls and blood-soaked ambition, Messalina emerges as a figure both dazzling and dangerous. Born around 17 or 18 CE, she wasn't some commoner who stumbled into power. Her veins pulsed with imperial blood, a direct descendant of Octavia, sister of Augustus, Rome's first emperor. This wasn't just a family tree, it was a golden ticket to the elite circles that decided the fate of 60 million souls. Messalina's childhood wasn't filled with dolls or innocence. Growing up under Tiberius and Caligula, she witnessed emperors indulge in depravity that shocked even Rome's jaded elite. Tiberius retreated to Capri, rumored to host orgies too vile for historians to detail. Caligula declared himself a god, slept with his sisters, and made his horse a consul. In this toxic crucible, Messalina learned that power wasn't just wealth or titles, it was the ability to bend reality to your will. By age 20, she married Claudius, a man dismissed as the imperial family's embarrassment. He limped, stuttered, and was hidden from public view, a laughingstock compared to the radiant Messalina. To onlookers, it seemed she'd drawn the short straw in Rome's marriage lottery. But fate, that cruel jester, had other plans. In 41 CE, Caligula's assassination left Rome leaderless. The Praetorian Guard, desperate for a figurehead, found Claudius cowering behind a curtain. Overnight, this useless man became emperor, and Messalina, at 23, became the most powerful woman in the world. Imagine being 23, handed control over an empire's wealth, armies, and secrets. Most would revel in luxury, fancy tunics, grand feasts, maybe a temple in their name. Messalina? She had bigger, darker ambitions. She saw Rome's political machine for what it was. A web of favors, bribes, and alliances, lubricated by loyalty and fear. While Claudius played the ceremonial emperor, opening aqueducts, greeting ambassadors, Messalina built her own empire within her weapon. Sex. Not just pleasure, but a currency more potent than gold. Rome's elite, senators, merchants, generals, craved power, and Messalina offered it in her private chambers. Want a governorship? Join her exclusive parties. Need a trade license? One night with the empress could bypass years of bureaucracy. These weren't mere orgies, they were masterclasses in power brokering. Historians like Tacitus and Suetonius describe her gatherings as meticulously planned. Picture a palace bathed in Persian rose petals, marble floors gleaming under oil lamps, walls painted with gods in compromising poses. Senators negotiate grain prices while Gallic slaves massage their shoulders. Generals plot campaigns as Syrian dancers sway. Messalina moves among them, a conductor of chaos, her every word binding alliances tighter than any contract. This was no reckless hedonism. Messalina understood that intimacy bred loyalty. A senator spilling secrets in her bed was more reliable than one bound by oaths. Her parties blurred pleasure and politics, creating a parallel power structure that rivaled the Senate. While Claudius signed decrees, Messalina decided Rome's fate between goblets of Falernian wine. Her brilliance lay in her ability to make every guest feel like the center of her world, while she extracted their secrets, rebellions, trade routes, military plans. By 46 CE, she held a mental map of the empire more detailed than any official archive. Governors, merchants, even barbarians whispered their plans to her, unaware they were pawns in her game, but Messalina's genius came with a flaw: she believed herself untouchable. Her confidence led her to push boundaries no empress dared touch. In 47 CE, she did the unthinkable, competing with Rome's top prostitutes in a public contest of endurance. Pliny the Elder, no tabloid gossip, recorded that Messalina, under the alias Lysiska, bested a famed courtesan named Scylla, satisfying 25 men in one night. This wasn't just scandal, it was a power play. By outshining professionals, she declared her dominance over every sphere of Roman life, from politics to pleasure. The lower classes, often scorned by the elite, admired her audacity. To them, she wasn't just an empress, she was a rebel who respected their world enough to conquer it. This act, though, hinted at her growing recklessness. Messalina's system, built on seduction, secrets, and spectacle, worked because it was covert. But her public stunts, like the prostitute contest, began to erode the delicate balance of her power. Rome's elite tolerated her because she delivered results, but her flamboyance threatened their traditions. She was no longer just a player in the game. She was rewriting the rules, and that made her dangerous. As her confidence swelled, so did the whispers of her enemies. The same senators who drank her wine began to plot. The same freedmen who owed her their careers started to hedge their bets. Messalina, intoxicated by her own success, didn't see the storm brewing. Messalina's empire wasn't built on armies or gold, it was woven from secrets. By 47 CE, her network of informants spanned the empire, a web of whispers delivered in moments of vulnerability. Senators, generals, merchants, each thought they were special, confiding in her during intimate encounters. She didn't need spies or torture, her charm was her interrogation room. A governor might reveal a rebellion spark over wine. A merchant might confess tax evasion between kisses. A general might boast of troop movements to impress her. Messalina collected these fragments, piecing together a puzzle that gave her unmatched control. Her mind was a vault, storing details no imperial archive could match. Her parties were the engine of this system. Picture a night in 46 CE, the Palatine's Grand Triclinium, transformed into a decadent stage. Silk cushions replace formal couches. Lamps cast shadows on erotic frescoes. Guests, senators, Syrian traders, Gallic chieftains, mingle amid rose petals and exotic perfumes. Messalina, draped in a translucent stola, glides through the crowd. Her beauty is undeniable, but her presence is magnetic. When she speaks, senators stammer. When she smiles, merchants open their ledgers. When she frowns, generals rethink their loyalty. Every conversation is a transaction, trade routes secured, military campaigns planned, political debts incurred, all while the wine flows and boundaries dissolve. These gatherings weren't chaos, they were choreography. Messalina ensured every guest left with what they wanted: a favor, a contract, a night to remember, but owed her more. A senator might gain a lucrative post but reveal his allies' plans. A merchant might secure a trade monopoly but confess his smuggling routes. Her parties were a marketplace of power, where pleasure sealed deals stronger than any law. Tacitus notes that these weren't just orgies, they were strategic summits where Rome's fate was shaped. Messalina's genius was making her guests feel invincible while rendering them vulnerable. Her most audacious move came in 47 CE, when she uncovered a senatorial plot against Claudius. Instead of alerting him directly, she invited each conspirator to private dinners. With wine and seduction, she extracted their plans, accomplices, and timelines. Then, in a stroke of brilliance, she fed them false information about palace defenses, ensuring their plot would fail spectacularly. When the conspiracy was discovered, Claudius emerged as a vigilant ruler, unaware Messalina had orchestrated it all. The conspirators were executed, never suspecting her manipulation. This wasn't just power, it was art, a masterclass in psychological warfare, but Messalina's system had a fatal flaw: it relied on her infallibility. Her success bred arrogance, and her public stunts, like the prostitute contest, began to alienate her allies. Rome's elite tolerated her because she delivered stability, but her flamboyance challenged their sacred traditions. The Senate, bound by centuries of custom, bristled at an empress who mocked their authority. Freedmen like Narcissus, who owed her their rise, began to see her as a liability. Even the masses, who once cheered her audacity, whispered of instability. Messalina, lost in her own myth, didn't notice the cracks forming. Her obsession with dominance led to her most infamous act, the prostitute contest in Rome's Subura district. This wasn't a private affair but a spectacle in a luxurious brothel, with frescoed walls and Persian fountains. Messalina, as Lysiska, faced Scylla, a celebrated meretrix. The challenge? To outlast each other in satisfying clients. Crowds watched as Messalina triumphed, completing 25 encounters to Scylla's 22. This wasn't mere hedonism, it was propaganda. By besting Rome's finest, she declared herself unmatched in every arena, from politics to pleasure. The poor admired her for engaging their world, the elite saw it as a step too far. This victory, though, sowed the seeds of her downfall. Rome's moralists, already uneasy, saw her as a threat to the empire's sanctity. Her allies began to distance themselves, fearing her recklessness would drag them down. Messalina, however, doubled down. In 48 CE, she made a decision so bold, so incomprehensible, it defies logic. She married Gaius Silius, a wealthy, handsome consul designate, while still wed to Claudius. This wasn't a secret affair but a full Roman wedding: white toga, saffron veil, sacred rites, and a public banquet. Claudius was away in Ostia, overseeing mundane imperial duties, while his wife staged a ceremony that screamed rebellion. Why? Some historians argue she believed Claudius was dying, and marrying Silius would secure her power through him. Others suggest megalomania: she thought she could rewrite Rome's laws. I propose another theory: boredom. Messalina had conquered every challenge: politics, sex, espionage. What was left but to defy the ultimate taboo, the emperor's marital authority? It was as if she'd unlocked every achievement in a game and decided to break it entirely. The wedding was a spectacle of hubris. Guests, torn between awe and terror, watched as Messalina exchanged vows with Silius. Musicians played wedding hymns that sounded like dirges. The air, thick with incense, carried the stench of impending doom. News reached Claudius in Ostia, carried by a trembling messenger. The emperor, mocked his entire life, faced the ultimate humiliation. His advisors, Narcissus chief among them, saw the danger: a legitimate marriage to Silius could invalidate Claudius's reign, sparking civil war. Claudius wavered, torn between love and survival. Messalina's allies faced a choice: stay loyal to a sinking empress or side with the emperor. Most chose self-preservation. Narcissus, once her confidant, betrayed her without hesitation. Senators who'd reveled in her parties claimed ignorance. The Roman masses split, some outraged, some awed, others terrified of the empire's fragility. Messalina, sensing the end, didn't flee. Instead, she threw one final party in the gardens of Lucullus, a decadent paradise of marble terraces and exotic blooms. As troops marched to arrest her, she danced, drank, and laughed, as if denial could rewrite reality. Her guests, caught in a surreal nightmare, knew the end was near. The sound of boots grew louder, a grim reminder of Rome's unforgiving justice. Part 3, The Fall and Legacy of Messalina, 1,000 words. The gardens of Lucullus, Rome's most opulent retreat, became Messalina's final stage. As dawn broke on that fateful day in 48 CE, her last party raged, a desperate, frenzied defiance of the inevitable. And torches flickered like dying stars, musicians played with manic intensity, and the air vibrated with the distant march of soldiers. Guests split into 3 camps, those weeping, knowing death loomed, those drinking to oblivion, and those watching, mesmerized by the collapse of an era. Messalina, at the center, was a paradox, alternating between manic laughter and despair, as if her mind couldn't accept defeat. Tacitus describes her speech that night, a delusional plea that Claudius would forgive her, that this was all a misunderstanding. Some guests wept, others fled. Her loyalists stayed, clinging to her fading light. As the troops arrived, most scattered. Silius, her new husband, was found drunk, reciting love poetry by a fountain. He was executed without fanfare, a footnote to her tragedy. Messalina, however, was no easy target. Claudius, still in Ostia, wrestled with his decision. He loved her, despite everything, her brilliance, her children, their shared years. But his advisers, led by Narcissus, saw her as a threat to Rome's stability. Narcissus acted without Claudius's consent, sending a centurion to the gardens with orders to resolve the situation. The once vibrant empress was found alone, her gown tattered, her face streaked with ruined makeup. Yet, in her final moments, she summoned imperial dignity. She didn't beg or bribe. Instead, she asked to write a final letter. The centurion, struck by her resolve, allowed it. For an hour, Messalina scribbled on a wax tablet, revising obsessively. Its contents remain a mystery. Claudius burned it unread. Was it a confession? A justification? A threat? I believe it was a love letter, a raw reflection on their shared past, a reminder of the woman she was before power consumed her. Her final words to the centurion, "Tell Claudius I regret nothing, except not being bold enough." Then, before the soldier could act, Messalina took her own life, denying her enemies the satisfaction of her execution. At 30, in the gardens where she'd woven her legend, she fell, alone but defiant. Her death wasn't just the end of a woman, it was a warning about power's seductive pull. What can we learn from Messalina? She wasn't evil like Caligula or Nero. She didn't kill for sport or burn cities. She was immoral, a brilliant mind unbound by ethics, wielding power with surgical precision until hubris blinded her. Her story mirrors modern disruptors, tech moguls, rogue politicians, influencers, who bend rules for gain. But her collapse shows the fragility of systems built on one person's charisma. Rome thrived under her, tributes flowed, borders held, the economy boomed. Yet her reliance on personal exception, on operating beyond rules, doomed her. When she fell, the empire didn't crumble, but it shuddered, reminded of its vulnerability. Ironically, Claudius's next wife, Agrippina, was deadlier. She poisoned him, installed Nero, and sparked the Julio-Claudian dynasty's end. The man who purged Messalina to restore morality fell to a virtuous wife's ambition. History's dark humor is relentless. Messalina's legacy isn't just scandal, it's a mirror. What happens when brilliance meets limitless power? She started with small transgressions, each pushing the line further until none remained. We see this today in leaders who dodge accountability, believing themselves above consequence. Her story asks, what would we do with absolute power? Would we resist its pull, or, like her, chase the next thrill until the system breaks? Her fall also reveals society's role. Her allies, senators, freedmen, citizens, enabled her, choosing short-term gain over long-term stability. They drank her wine, joined her parties, and ignored the cracks until they became chasms. Today, we have checks, democracies, institutions, but they only work if we demand accountability. Messalina thrived because too many looked away. Her story isn't a relic, it's a warning. Power, unchecked, breeds its own destruction, whether in Rome or the modern world. So, what do you think? Is Messalina a distant curiosity, or do you see her shadow in today's power plays? Who in our world, politicians, CEOs, celebrities, echoes her. Comment below, and tell me which controversial figure you'd like me to explore next. If this dive into Rome's underbelly gripped you, hit like and subscribe for more unfiltered history. The past isn't just stories. It's a guide to who we are and what we might become. Power corrupts, but its stories teach us how to fight it.